I'm joined now by a former U.S. ambassador to Israel and Syria and current head of the Baker Institute at Rice University, Edward Djerejian. Good to see you. So how does this messaging sound to you? Does it sound like there's real cohesion, or is it still a plan in flux?
Well, the overarching cohesion, I detected the statements from both the Secretary of State and our permanent rep to the UN, is that they are certainly following President Trump's basic foreign policy dictum that the United States is not going to get involved in nation building anymore, as we've seen the painful experiences in Afghanistan and Iraq. So I think there's cohesion in their separate remarks in that respect. But I think the confusion, I believe, comes as to whether or not our taking military action, albeit very focused on this one airstrip based on this one horrible incident of the use of chemical weapons, that is it a step toward regime change? And I've noticed that several of your guests have been debating that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the issue or the policy is regime change.
Should it be?
Well, let me put it this way. I think there is a basic consensus that as long as Bashar al-Assad is president of Syria, mm-hmm. that the country is not really going to be able to come together. And any political transition at the end of the day would most likely have to involve his stepping aside. Mm-hmm. The whole question is,
which he's not going to do, correct?
Which he's not going to do unless, mm-hmm. unless the stakes become too high for him, especially the political military stakes on the ground, mm-hmm. where he no longer has a perception that he can win this mm-hmm. by continuing his military actions and his really major targeting of civilians.
So is a military solution the answer, or is it strictly going to be a political intervention that will lead to peace in Syria? It would seem it have to ultimately lead to a removal of Assad, because no one believes that if he were to stay in power, then suddenly, you know, it would become a peaceful nation again.
There is no sole military solution to the horrible civil war in Syria. I think everybody accepts that. There has to be, at the end of the day, a political solution. But what I'm suggesting is that unless the political military facts on the ground are altered mm-hmm. to the extent whereby Assad's regime no longer calculates that it can win militarily, that it can prevail, unless the stakes are heightened against that mm-hmm. perception on his part, I think we're not going to get anywhere in these mm-hmm. political discussions in the so-called mm-hmm. Geneva process.
Does Russia have to be part of any kind of diplomatic or political solution search in this equation on the international stage?
Absolutely. In fact, I think the U.S.-Russian relationship mm-hmm. is the real focal point, not only for Syria, but for so many other issues, mm-hmm. as you well know, that are on the agenda. Secretary Tillerson's visit to Moscow before our military action in Syria was already heavy laden with issues, including Crimea, Ukraine, all different types of issues on the agenda, the hacking of American elections, etc. Mm-hmm. But now with this issue also on the table, I think, frankly, my own judgment is that Tillerson goes to Moscow more emboldened because the Russian president, Putin, who makes mm-hmm. the decisions, now sees that this administration will take military actions when it thinks certain lines have been crossed. My own view on this is that the message the administration is sending out, not only to Russia and Bashar al-Assad and the Iranians, but also to North Korea, is that America's strategic restraint has its limits.
And is it your view that Russia can be counted on as playing a significant role in helping to broker some sort of deal, that there can be faith that Russia's intentions would be good?
I believe so. I think Russia is a key element because, especially ever since 2015, Frederica, Russia has established an important presence in Syria, a political military presence. There are historic antecedents to all of this, but it is a major player in Syria, and therefore it will have a major place in the future solution of Syria. So I think the U.S.-Russian relationship has to be put on a much better footing so that the United States and Russia can address these issues along with the other issues on their agenda. But having said that, let's not forget the big role that Iran plays in Syria, and that also has to be addressed.
All right, Ambassador Edward Djerejian, thank you so much. Appreciate your time as we watch Air Force One taxiing there in Palm Beach as the president makes his way back to Washington for a very busy week, particularly on the global stage.